The word leverage hits Luca's chest like a fist. He's sitting at the defense table, alone, visibly pregnant, hand pressed against his sternum as if he can physically hold his heart together. And the man who once whispered forever into his skin is now telling a courtroom full of dangerous men that Luca's unborn child is a bargaining chip. He thinks pregnancy is leverage, Your Honor. Damien Moretti's voice echoes off the vaulted ceiling. Sharp, cold, designed to cut. Every head in the gallery turns toward Luca. Bodyguards in tailored suits. Silent enforcers who've buried bodies for the Moretti syndicate. Clerks pretending they don't recognize half the men in this room from crime scene photos. Luca's knuckles whiten against the table edge. His other hand trembles slightly, hovering near his chest, never quite touching his stomach. Not here. Not with so many eyes watching, judging. The courtroom smells like polished wood and old paper and something sharper underneath. Danger, maybe. Or just the cologne of men who've never been told no. The judge adjusts his glasses. His voice carries the exhaustion of someone who's seen too many powerful men use his courtroom as a chessboard. Mr. Moretti, you will keep personal insults to a minimum. Damien doesn't even look at him. He's still staring at Luca. Designer suit perfectly tailored, jaw set like marble, dark eyes burning with something that might be fury or might just be contempt. His presence dominates the room the way a storm dominates the sky. Inevitable, inescapable. To the world, he's the heir to a dynasty built on loyalty and blood. Charisma wrapped in authority. Power that doesn't need to shout. To Luca, he's the man who promised protection. Right before freezing every account and filing a lawsuit to erase him entirely. He lied to me. Damien continues, voice steady, reasonable. The tone of someone explaining why he had no choice. He hid his condition. He signed contracts while hormonal. Pause perfectly timed. That invalidates everything. He turns, pointing at Luca, stabbing the air with accusation. He wants money, Your Honor. He wants my name attached to that pup. He thinks. I didn't lie, Luca says. His voice comes out quieter than he intended. Barely audible over the hum of fluorescent lights and the shuffle of expensive shoes against marble. But it's there. He said it. The judge raises one eyebrow. Damien's lip curls. You didn't lie? He spreads his arms like he's addressing a jury. You lived in my penthouse. You ate my food. You wore clothes I paid for. You had every luxury. His voice drops, just enough to sound intimate, damaging. And still, like every Omega who can't control himself, you decided to manipulate the situation. Laughter ripples through the gallery. Not loud, but sharp enough. Humiliating enough. Luca's throat tightens. Tears sting behind his eyes, and he presses his hand harder against his chest, trying to push the ache back inside where no one can see it. His pulse thunders in his ears. The air conditioning suddenly feels too cold. His suit jacket, borrowed, ill-fitting, constricts around his ribs like a cage. He can't look up, can't meet anyone's eyes. He's alone, by design. Damien's lawyers strangled every path available. The Moretti syndicate owns most of the city's legal muscle, and the few attorneys who might have helped? The threats were quiet, subtle, effective. The judge sighs. You have no counsel, he says, voice weary. This hearing is not favorable to proceed under those circumstances. Do you intend to continue representing yourself? Luca swallows. His voice cracks. He clears his throat. Tries again. I don't have one yet. He should be here. Damien's eyes narrow. Then he laughs, low, mocking. Who? He asks, turning to the gallery like he's sharing a joke. Your neighbor? The barista from downstairs. Soft snickers follow. Luca's heart sinks. He made one desperate call. One number he swore he'd never dial again. One man he cut out of his life years ago because the silence between them became safer than the expectations. He shouldn't have hoped. He shouldn't have. The judge taps his gavel lightly. Mr. He glances at the empty space beside Luca. If counsel does not appear within the next 30 minutes, I will have no choice but to issue a default judgment. 30 minutes. Luca's stomach twists. Damien leans back in his chair. Posture relaxed, expression satisfied. He's already won. And he knows it. The air in the courtroom feels heavier now. Thicker. Like it's pressing down on Luca's chest, making it harder to breathe. He can feel the weight of every stare. Every whisper. Every man in this room who's decided he's already guilty of something. The clock on the wall ticks. Loud. Relentless. If you've ever felt powerless in a room full of people who didn't believe you, who didn't even try, keep reading. Because what happens next will make you believe in second chances. Damien stands. The movement is deliberate, controlled. He doesn't rush, doesn't need to. When you own the room, you move at your own pace. His lead attorney, a sharp-eyed woman in a charcoal suit, places a folder on the table in front of him. Damien opens it without looking down. He already knows what's inside. Your Honor, he begins, voice smooth, reasonable. The tone of a man who's explaining something obvious to someone slower. I want to be clear about the timeline here. He turns slightly, not toward the judge but toward the gallery, playing to the audience. Luca and I had an arrangement, a contractual relationship. He was compensated generously for his time. Housing, clothing, access to resources most Omegas only dream of. Luca's nails dig into his palms. Compensated. Like he was an employee. Like he was. During the course of this arrangement, Damien continues, Luca became pregnant. He did not disclose his condition immediately. In fact, he concealed it for several weeks. Long enough to sign legal documents that outline the terms of our separation. The judge frowns. Are you claiming he misrepresented his status? I'm claiming, Damien says, voice hardening just slightly, that he knew exactly what he was doing. He weaponized his biology. The word hangs in the air. Weaponized. Luca's breath catches. Damien's attorney steps forward, handing a document to the clerk. We have medical records showing that Mr. Luca was aware of his pregnancy at least 3 weeks before he signed the separation agreement. He chose not to disclose. That constitutes fraud. That's not, Luca starts. Quiet. The judge says, not unkindly. You'll have your turn. But will he? Without a lawyer, without evidence, without anyone who believes him. What turn does he really have? Damien's gaze slides toward him. Just for a moment. And in that look, Luca sees everything he needs to know. This was planned. Every step. Every move. Damien didn't just wake up one day and decide to destroy him. He built the trap carefully. Methodically. Froze the accounts. Controlled the narrative. Made sure Luca had nowhere to go and no one to turn to. He's trying to trap me, Damien says, voice dropping into something almost regretful, almost sad. He knows that under Omega protection laws, if the court recognizes the pup as mine, he's entitled to financial support, to my name, to my resources. He shakes his head slowly. But I won't be manipulated. Not by sentiment. Not by biology. Not by someone who thought pregnancy was a shortcut to wealth. The gallery murmurs. Some nod. Others exchange glances. Luca wants to scream. Wants to stand up and tell them the truth. That he didn't plan this. Didn't want this. Didn't even know if he'd survive carrying an alpha's child because his body wasn't built for it, and Damien knew that. Knew the risks, knew everything, and still. But his voice won't come. His throat is too tight. His chest too heavy. Damien sits back down. His attorney closes the folder with a soft snap. The sound feels final. Damien leans slightly toward his legal team, close enough that Luca can just barely hear the whisper. He doesn't deserve representation. The words slice through Luca like a blade. He doesn't deserve, as if being alone is something he earned. As if being powerless is justice. The judge clears his throat. Mr. Luca, do you have any response to these allegations? Luca opens his mouth. Nothing comes out. Damien smirks. Just a little. Just enough. The clock ticks. 26 minutes left. The silence stretches. Luca can feel it. Pressing against his skin, crawling up his throat, wrapping around his ribs like wire. Everyone is waiting. The judge, the clerks, The men in the gallery who've probably killed people for less than what Damien's accusing him of. He has to say something. He has to. I was scared. His voice comes out hoarse. Barely more than a whisper. But it's there. The judge leans forward slightly. You'll need to speak up. Luca swallows. His hand moves instinctively to his stomach, just for a second, before he catches himself and pulls it back to his chest. He can't let them see. Can't let them reduce him to just this. Just the pregnancy. Just the weakness. I was scared, he says again, louder this time. I didn't tell him right away because I didn't know what he'd do. Damien scoffs. Loud enough for the room to hear. Luca's jaw tightens. I didn't lie about anything, he continues, forcing the words out. I didn't trick him. I didn't. His voice cracks. He stops. Breathes. I didn't plan this. Then what did you plan? Damien interjects, voice cold. You lived in my home. You accepted everything I gave you. And the moment you got pregnant, you started making demands. I never. You wanted a ring, Damien says. His tone shifts, quieter now, more dangerous. You wanted a bond ceremony. You wanted me to claim you in front of my family. Luca's chest constricts. Because it's true. He did want those things. I wanted you to love me, Luca says. The words hang in the air. Raw. Undefended. The courtroom goes still. Damien's expression doesn't change. But something flickers in his eyes. Something quickly smothered. Love, he repeats, voice flat. You think this is about love? I thought it was, Luca whispers. Damien leans back in his chair, arms crossed. Love doesn't sign contracts. Love doesn't negotiate terms. You knew what this was from the beginning. I knew what you told me it was, Luca says, voice stronger now. But you lied too, Damien. You said I was safe with you. You said... He stops himself, shakes his head. You said a lot of things. The judge taps his pen against the bench. Mr. Luca, do you have any documentation? Any evidence that contradicts Mr. Moretti's claims? Luca's stomach sinks. He looks down at the empty table in front of him. No files. No folders. No lawyer whispering strategies in his ear. No. He controlled everything. The accounts. The records. Convenient, Damien mutters. I'm telling the truth, Luca says, voice rising. He looks directly at Damien now, really looks at him. You froze my accounts. You made sure no one would represent me. You isolated me so I'd have to come here alone and humiliate myself in front of everyone. Damien's jaw tightens. Just slightly. Just enough to tell Luca he's right. You wanted me powerless, Luca continues. His hands are shaking now, but he doesn't stop. Because if I had a lawyer, if I had anyone, they'd see what you really did. They'd see. Enough, the judge says. Luca stops. His breath comes in shallow gasps. His heart hammers against his ribs. The fluorescent lights above feel too bright. The air too thin. The judge looks at him. Not unkindly, but with the exhaustion of someone who's heard 1,000 desperate stories and can't save any of them. Without counsel, the judge says slowly, and without evidence to support your claims, I'm afraid. Someone's coming, Luca interrupts. The words spill out before he can stop them. The judge pauses. Excuse me? Luca swallows. His throat feels raw. I called someone. He said he'd come. Damien's eyes narrow. Who? Luca doesn't answer, because he's not sure anymore. The call went through. He heard the line connect, heard breathing on the other end, but no words, no confirmation, just silence. And then the line went dead. Maybe he imagined the whole thing. Maybe desperation made him hear what he needed to hear. Maybe. The clock ticks. 18 minutes left. Damien leans toward his attorney, whispering something Luca can't hear. The attorney nods, pulls out her phone. The judge sighs. Mr. Luca, if your counsel does not appear. He'll be here, Luca says, but his voice wavers, and everyone in the courtroom hears it. Damien smiles. No, he says softly. He won't. The courtroom doors remain closed. silent, unyielding. Luca stares at them, willing them to open, willing anyone to walk through and prove Damien wrong. But the doors don't move, and the clock keeps ticking. 15 minutes. Luca's hands press flat against the table. His breath comes shallow. His pulse thunders in his ears. And the doors stay closed. 14 minutes. The judge is writing something. His pen scratches against paper, slow, methodical, final. Damien's attorney is already gathering her files. Confident, efficient. The posture of someone who's won before the verdict is even read. Luca can't breathe. He can't. The air in the courtroom feels too thick. His suit jacket clings to his skin. His vision tunnels slightly, edges blurring, sounds becoming distant and muffled. This is it. This is how it ends. Alone. Humiliated. Erased. The judge clears his throat. Mr. Luca. Silence. Not the regular kind. The kind that cuts. The kind that makes every person in the room stop mid-breath and turn toward the source. The courtroom doors swing open. Not pushed. Not guided. They open with deliberate, echoing force. The sound reverberating off vaulted ceilings and polished wood, and the suddenly fragile composure of every man in the gallery. Conversation dies. Heads turn. The judge pauses, pen hovering above paper. Damien's frown deepens. Luca's breath catches. A man steps through. Older. Silver hair swept back with effortless precision. A white suit, immaculate, almost luminous against the heavy oak doors and the dark-suited bodies filling the courtroom. His presence doesn't simply fill the room. Claims it. He moves with the kind of calm that comes from never doubting your right to be anywhere. Not hurried. Not hesitant. As if time itself should adjust to his pace. Every step measured. Every movement precise. The door closes behind him with a soft click that somehow sounds louder than the gavel. Luca's hands tighten against the table edge. No, not him. He wasn't sure the call had even gone through. Hadn't expected an answer. Had almost prayed he wouldn't come because seeing him again, after everything, after years of silence and unspoken resentment, would hurt more than losing this case ever could. The man walks forward. He doesn't acknowledge the murmurs. Doesn't glance at the bodyguards straightening in their seats or the clerks whispering behind their hands. He ignores Damien's glare. Ignores the world itself. He stops beside Luca, only then turning toward the judge. His voice, when it comes, is calm. Almost gentle. Apologies, he says. Traffic on 5th. The judge blinks. Stares. Then seems to remember himself. State your name for the record. The man reaches into his jacket, slow, deliberate, and pulls out a sleek leather folder. He places it on the clerk's desk with the care of someone handling a blade. Then he looks at Damien. Not at the judge. Not at the gallery. At Damien. His gaze is steady. Unreadable. The kind of look that doesn't threaten because it doesn't need to. My name, he says, voice measured and soft, is Adrian Vale. The gallery reacts first. Soft gasps. Whispers hissing through the rows like wind through dead leaves. Someone mutters, "The Phantom Council." Even Damien shifts. His jaw tightens. Recognition flickers across his face, quickly buried beneath the mask of control. But there, visible, undeniable, Luca feels his stomach twist. Not from fear, from something far more disorienting. Hope. Adrian doesn't touch him. Doesn't offer warmth or softness or any of the things a father might offer a son he hasn't seen in years. But his presence. God, his presence is an anchor. Weight, authority, protection without affection, responsibility without sentiment. I am entering appearance on behalf of the defendant. Adrian continues, voice still calm. Effective immediately. Damien's lead attorney stands abruptly. Objection, Your Honor. He can't just. He can. The judge interrupts. His tone has shifted. More respectful. Almost careful. He looks at Adrian with the expression of someone who's just realized the chessboard has been flipped. Proceed, Mr. Vale. Adrian inclines his head slightly. Then he turns slowly, deliberately toward Damien. You're his representation? Damien asks. His voice is steady, but there's an edge underneath. Tension threading through the calm facade. Since when? Adrian's expression doesn't change. Since the minute, he says quietly. You mocked my son for having no lawyer. The word son cracks through the courtroom louder than any gavel ever could. Luca feels everything stop. His breath, his heartbeat, the world itself. Damien goes completely still. The judge freezes mid-note. The gallery sucks in a collective breath. Sharp, shocked, hungry for what comes next. Adrian's gaze doesn't move, doesn't waver. He simply stands there, white suit stark against the dark wood, silver hair catching the overhead lights, presence radiating the kind of power that doesn't need to raise its voice. Continue, he says to the judge, tone still soft, still deadly. I believe Mr. Moretti was explaining how he intended to make an Omega suffer. The temperature in the room seems to drop. Damien opens his mouth, then closes it again. He looks at Luca, truly looks, and for the first time since the trial started, his expression falters. Not with guilt, not with regret, with calculation. Adrian places one folder on the table, neatly, carefully, like a blade being set down before a duel. Luca doesn't know what's inside, but the certainty in Adrian's posture says it's enough to shift everything. And for the first time since he walked into this courtroom alone, chest tight and heart fractured, Luca's tears don't burn like shame. They feel like release. The judge clears his throat. Very well. With new counsel present, this hearing will not proceed as default. We will. Adrian lifts one hand. Politely, almost casually. Your Honor, he says, before we move forward, there is something everyone should see. The courtroom holds its breath. Adrian doesn't rush, doesn't perform. He simply stands there, white suit immaculate, silver hair catching the light, and lets the silence do the work. Damien's jaw tightens. His hands rest flat on the table in front of him, fingers splayed like he's physically anchoring himself. The judge adjusts his glasses. Mr. Vale, if you have evidence. I do, Adrian says. His tone remains soft, measured, the kind of voice that doesn't need volume because every word lands with precision. But first, the court deserves context. He turns slightly, not toward the judge, but toward Luca. For the first time since he walked through those doors, he looks directly at his son. Luca's breath catches. There's no warmth in Adrian's gaze. No fatherly affection. No apology for the years of silence that stretched between them like a canyon neither knew how to cross. But there's something else. Recognition. Responsibility. A quiet, unshakable resolve that says, I'm here now, and that will have to be enough. Adrian looks away, back toward the judge. My son and I, he begins, voice steady, have not spoken in 5 years. A ripple of whispers moves through the gallery. Luca's hands tighten in his lap. We had a disagreement, Adrian continues. The kind that families have when expectations don't align with reality. When love becomes conditional on things that shouldn't matter. He pauses, just for a moment. I expected him to follow a certain path. He chose differently, and rather than accept that, I withdrew. The honesty is brutal, unvarnished. Luca's throat tightens. He didn't expect this. Didn't expect Adrian to stand in front of a courtroom full of dangerous men and admit fault. I was wrong, Adrian says simply. The gallery goes still. Even Damien's expression shifts just slightly, uncertainty flickering behind the mask. But Adrian continues, voice hardening just a fraction. My failure as a father does not erase my responsibility as one, and it certainly doesn't give anyone. His gaze slides toward Damien, the right to exploit that absence. The judge leans forward. Mr. Vale, are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, Adrian interrupts smoothly, that Mr. Moretti knew exactly who my son was, knew about our estrangement, and used it. Damien's attorney stands. Your Honor, this is pure speculation. Is it? Adrian asks. He doesn't raise his voice. Doesn't need to. Because I have documentation showing that Mr. Moretti's legal team researched my son's background extensively before initiating their relationship. He opens the leather folder, pulls out a single sheet of paper, places it on the clerk's desk. They knew he had no family support, knew he was vulnerable, knew. Adrian's voice drops. That an Omega without protection is an easy target. The courtroom erupts in whispers. The judge raises his hand for silence. Mr. Vale, if you're accusing. I'm stating facts, Adrian says. Mr. Moretti didn't choose my son randomly. He chose him because he was isolated. Because he had no one to turn to. Luca's chest tightens. Because it's true. He'd wondered, sometimes, why Damien had noticed him at all. Why someone with that much power, that much wealth, that many options? Why had he looked twice at a struggling Omega working double shifts just to afford rent? He'd told himself it was fate, destiny, love. But maybe it was just strategy. Damien leans back in his chair. His posture is still controlled, but there's tension in his shoulders now. His fingers drum once against the table, quick, almost imperceptible, before he stills them. Your Honor, he says, voice calm. Mr. Vale is trying to distract from the core issue. His son signed a contract. His son concealed a pregnancy. His son, Adrian interrupts, voice cutting clean through Damien's words, was 23 years old when you met him, barely out of college, working 2 jobs, living in a studio apartment with broken heating. He takes a step forward, not aggressive, just present. You offered him safety, Adrian continues, security, a life he'd never imagined. And in exchange, you made him sign documents he didn't fully understand. Documents that stripped him of autonomy, that gave you control over his finances, his housing, his entire existence. Damien's jaw clenches. He had legal counsel review those contracts. Did he? Adrian asks. Or did your lawyers present him with a name, someone on your payroll, and tell him it was independent representation? Silence. Damien doesn't answer. The judge frowns. Mr. Moretti, if there was any conflict of interest in the contract review, there wasn't, Damien says quickly. He had every opportunity to. To what? Adrian's voice sharpens. Just slightly. Just enough. To hire a lawyer he couldn't afford? To walk away from the only stability he'd ever known? To risk homelessness and starvation because he questioned your terms? The words land like stones. Heavy. Undeniable. Luca's vision blurs. He blinks hard, trying to keep the tears back, trying to stay present. Adrian isn't done. My son made mistakes, he says. He trusted the wrong person. He signed documents he shouldn't have. He believed promises that were never meant to be kept. He pauses, looks at Luca again, just for a second. But those mistakes don't make him a criminal. They make him human. The judge is silent for a long moment. Then he looks at Damien. Mr. Moretti, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you or your legal team conduct background research on Mr. Luca before initiating a relationship with him? Damien's expression doesn't change. Due diligence is standard practice. That's not an answer, the judge says. Damien's attorney leans over, whispering urgently. Damien shakes his head just once. Yes, he says finally. We researched him. The gallery murmurs. And did that research, the judge continues, include information about his family situation, his financial status, his lack of support network? Damien's jaw works. Yes. And you proceeded anyway. There was nothing illegal. I didn't ask if it was illegal, the judge interrupts. I asked if you proceeded knowing he was vulnerable. Damien's silence is answer enough. The judge sits back, expression unreadable. Mr. Vale, you mentioned additional evidence. Adrian nods. He pulls another document from the folder. This one is thicker. Bound. Financial records, he says, showing that Mr. Moretti opened offshore accounts 3 months before he filed for separation. Accounts that contain assets acquired during the relationship, assets that, under Omega protection laws, should be considered shared property. Damien goes very still. Your Honor, his attorney says quickly. Those accounts are concealed, Adrian finishes. Hidden. Deliberately excluded from disclosure. The judge's expression darkens. Mr. Moretti, is this true? Damien doesn't answer immediately. When he does, his voice is tight, controlled. Those accounts are for business purposes. Are they? Adrian asks. Because the deposits don't match any business transactions. They match the sale of personal assets. Assets my son helped acquire. He places the document on the clerk's desk. Artwork, he says, purchased in my son's name. Sold 3 weeks before the separation filing. Proceeds deposited into an account in the Cayman Islands. The courtroom erupts. Whispers become voices. Voices become arguments. The judge hammers his gavel twice before order returns. Damien's face is flushed now. His control is slipping, just barely, just enough to show the edges of something uglier underneath. You have no right. I have every right, Adrian says. His voice is still soft, still calm, but there's steel underneath now. I'm his father, and I will not stand by while you systematically destroy him. He turns to the judge. Your Honor, I'm requesting a full forensic audit of Mr. Moretti's finances. I'm also requesting that all assets acquired during the relationship be frozen pending review. The judge nods slowly. Granted. Damien's hands curl into fists. For the first time since the trial started, he looks genuinely threatened. Adrian steps back, standing beside Luca again. He doesn't touch him, doesn't speak to him, but his presence is enough. Luca's hands are trembling. He presses them flat against his thighs, trying to steady himself, trying to process what just happened. Adrian came, after 5 years of silence, after a phone call that might have been a hallucination. He came. The judge clears his throat. This hearing is adjourned pending the completion of the financial review. We will reconvene in. Adrian lifts his hand again. One more thing, Your Honor. The judge pauses. Yes. Adrian's gaze shifts to Damien. Steady. Unblinking. Shall we, he says quietly, discuss the offshore account in your son's name? Damien's face goes pale. The courtroom goes silent. And for the first time, Damien Moretti looks afraid. The father has arrived. The evidence is damning. But Damien's mask is cracking. And when alphas lose control, they don't just fight in courtrooms. They fight everywhere. Keep reading to see what he does when the law stops protecting him. The courtroom feels smaller now, tighter, like the walls are pressing inward with every word Adrian speaks. Damien's attorney is on her feet again, gesturing, objecting, trying to regain control of a narrative that's slipping through her fingers like water. But the judge barely looks at her. His attention is fixed on Adrian, on the document still sitting on the clerk's desk, on the question that hangs in the air like smoke. Shall we discuss the offshore account in your son's name? Damien's jaw works. His hands rest flat on the table, too still, too controlled. The kind of stillness that comes from forcing yourself not to move because any movement might reveal too much. I don't know what you're talking about, he says finally. His voice is steady, but there's a crack underneath. Thin, almost imperceptible. But there. Adrian doesn't smile, doesn't gloat. He simply reaches into his leather folder and pulls out another document. This one stapled, official-looking, stamped with banking seals that even Luca can recognize from across the table. Account number 847, XXXX, 2293, Adrian says. Opened 14 months ago. Registered under the name Damien Moretti Jr. The gallery goes silent. Someone in the back row shifts uncomfortably. Damien's face doesn't change, but his knuckles whiten slightly against the dark wood. I don't have a son, he says. No, Adrian agrees. You don't. He places the document on the table in front of the judge. But you told the bank you did. You provided falsified birth records. You listed my son. He gestures toward Luca without looking at him. As the child's mother. You created an entire fiction to open an account that would be protected from standard asset disclosure. The judge picks up the document. His expression darkens as he scans the pages. Damien's attorney leans over, whispering urgently. Damien shakes his head, sharp, dismissive. He stops, recalibrates. This is a misunderstanding. I was advised to set up trusts for future estate planning. By creating a fake child? Adrian asks. His tone remains mild, almost conversational. That's an interesting estate planning strategy. Someone in the gallery laughs, just once, quickly stifled. The judge sets the document down slowly. Mr. Moretti, these are serious allegations. If you knowingly provided false information to a financial institution— I didn't, Damien says quickly. Too quickly. My accountant handled. Your accountant, Adrian interrupts, who works exclusively for the Moretti family, who has, in fact, been employed by your organization for 17 years. He pulls out another sheet of paper. How many documents does he have in that folder? How deep does this go? Your accountant, Adrian continues, who also happens to be listed as a co-signer on 3 other offshore accounts. Accounts that contain deposits matching the sale of assets acquired during my son's relationship with you. The judge's expression is no longer just dark. It's furious. Mr. Moretti, I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you or did you not create fraudulent accounts to hide assets that should have been disclosed in this proceeding? Damien's silence stretches. 5 seconds. 10. His attorney puts her hand on his arm, probably signaling him to invoke his right to remain silent, to stop talking, to let the lawyers handle this. But Damien doesn't look at her. He's staring at Adrian. And for the first time since the trial started, there's something other than contempt in his eyes. Fear. Not of the law, not of the judge. Fear of the man in the white suit who walked into this courtroom and systematically dismantled everything Damien thought was untouchable. Your Honor, Damien says finally, voice tight, I'd like to request a recess. The judge's jaw tightens. Denied. Answer the question. Damien's hands curl into fists. Luca can see it from across the aisle, the way his shoulders tense, the way his breathing changes. He's seen this before, in private, in moments when Damien's control cracked just enough to let the rage underneath show through. It never ended well. Mr. Moretti, the judge says again, did you create fraudulent accounts? Damien stands abruptly. The movement is sharp, sudden. His chair scrapes against the marble floor with a sound like nails on glass. This is a witch hunt, he says. His voice is louder now, harder. You're letting him, he points at Adrian, walk in here and make baseless accusations without any real evidence. I have bank statements, Adrian says calmly. I have wire transfer records. I have testimony from 3 separate financial institutions. Would you like me to continue? Damien's face flushes. You have nothing, he snarls. You're bluffing. Adrian's expression doesn't change. Am I? The 2 words land like a challenge. Damien takes a step forward, not toward the judge, toward Adrian. His bodyguards in the gallery tense. One of them half rises from his seat before catching himself. The judge hammers his gavel. Mr. Moretti, sit down. Damien doesn't move. His gaze is locked on Adrian. On the man who just walked into his kingdom and set it on fire with nothing but paper and precision. You think you can come in here, Damien says, voice low and dangerous, and destroy everything I've built? You think you can protect him from me? The temperature in the room drops. Adrian doesn't flinch. I don't think, he says quietly. I know. The judge stands. This court is in recess. Bailiff, please escort. One more question, Your Honor, Adrian says. His voice cuts through the chaos like a blade. The judge pauses. Adrian turns to Damien. The offshore account, he says. The one you opened 14 months ago. How much is in it? Damien's jaw clenches. Answer the question, the judge says. Damien's hands shake just slightly. 7 million, he says finally. The courtroom erupts. Adrian's expression still doesn't change. $7 million, he repeats. Hidden, undisclosed, stolen. He looks at the judge. I think we're done here. The recess lasts 20 minutes. 20 minutes of Luca sitting alone at the defense table while Adrian disappears into a side room with court officials. 20 minutes of Damien pacing near the windows, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and urgent. 20 minutes of bodyguards exchanging glances and clerks whispering, and the weight of what just happened settling over the courtroom like ash. Luca's hands won't stop shaking. He presses them flat against his thighs, trying to steady himself, trying to breathe through the tightness in his chest. His suit jacket feels too heavy, the air too thin. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees Damien's face, the rage barely contained behind that mask of control. He's seen that expression before, in private, when no one was watching, when there were no judges or lawyers or witnesses to stop what came next. The courtroom doors open. Adrian walks back in. Still calm, still precise, white suit somehow still immaculate despite everything. He sits down beside Luca without a word. Doesn't ask if he's okay. Doesn't offer comfort. Just sits there, solid, present. Luca wants to say something, wants to thank him or apologize or explain the 5 years of silence that led to this moment. But his throat is too tight, and before he can find the words, the judge returns. Everyone rises. The judge sits. Everyone else follows. Damien is back at his table, flanked by his attorney and 2 other lawyers who weren't here before. Reinforcements. His expression is carefully neutral again. The rage buried. The mask rebuilt. But Luca can see the cracks. This court will now address the issue of asset concealment. The judge begins. His tone is clipped, professional. But there's an edge underneath, the kind that comes from realizing you've been lied to. Mr. Moretti, in light of the evidence presented, I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all accounts associated with you or your business entities, pending a full forensic audit. Damien's jaw tightens. Your Honor, that's non-negotiable. The judge interrupts. You will also surrender your passport and any travel documents. You are not to leave the state without express permission from this court. Damien stands slowly. Your Honor, I have business obligations. Then you should have considered that before committing fraud, the judge says. The word fraud hangs in the air, heavy, damning. Damien's hands curl into fists at his sides. Furthermore, the judge continues. I'm granting Mr. Luca's request for a restraining order. You are to have no contact with him, direct or indirect, until this matter is resolved. That's absurd, Damien says. His voice is rising now, the control slipping. He's carrying my... Allegedly, Adrian interjects smoothly. That has yet to be proven. Damien's head snaps toward him. What? You've spent this entire trial claiming the child isn't yours, Adrian says. His tone is mild, almost pleasant. That my son manipulated you, that the pregnancy was a trap. So let's settle it definitively. Paternity test, court-ordered, non-negotiable. Damien goes very still, too still. The judge raises an eyebrow. Mr. Moretti, do you have an objection to a paternity test? Silence. Damien's attorney leans over, whispering urgently. Damien shakes his head. Once, sharply. No objection, he says finally. But there's something in his voice now. Something that makes Luca's stomach twist. Good, Adrian says. We'll arrange it immediately. The judge nods. This hearing is adjourned pending the results of the paternity test and the financial audit. We will reconvene in. This isn't over. Damien's voice cuts through the judge's words like a knife. Everyone freezes. The judge frowns. Excuse me? Damien takes a step forward. His gaze is fixed on Luca now, not on Adrian, not on the judge. On Luca. You think you've won, he says. His voice is quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that precedes violence. You think he, a gesture toward Adrian, can protect you. Luca's breath catches. Mr. Moretti, the judge warns. Damien ignores him. But this courtroom? He spreads his arms. This is just theater. Out there. He points toward the doors. Toward the city beyond. That's my world. And in my world, there are no judges. No lawyers. No rules. The bailiff moves toward him. Damien doesn't even glance in his direction. You took something from me, he says to Luca. His eyes are dark. Empty. You embarrassed me. You made me look weak in front of people who can't afford to see me as weak. Adrian stands. That's enough. No. Damien's voice drops lower. Colder. It's not enough. Not even close. He leans forward just slightly. Just enough. This isn't over, he repeats. Not for you. Not for your father. And especially. His gaze drops to Luca's stomach. Not for your pup. The words land like a physical blow. Luca's hand moves instinctively to his chest, pressing hard against his sternum as if he can shield his racing heart, as if he can protect the life inside him from the weight of that threat. Adrian moves faster than Luca has ever seen him move. One moment he's standing beside the defense table. The next, he's between Luca and Damien. White suit and silver hair and an expression that would freeze fire. If you so much as breathe in his direction, Adrian says, voice soft and deadly, I will dismantle everything you've ever built. Your empire, your reputation, your legacy. I will erase you. Damien smiles. It doesn't reach his eyes. You can try. The judge hammers his gavel 3 times. Bailiff, remove Mr. Moretti from this courtroom. Now. 2 bailiffs move toward Damien. He raises his hands. Surrender without submission. I'm going, he says. But as he passes Luca's table, he pauses. Just for a second. Just long enough to lean down and whisper, so quietly that only Luca and Adrian can hear. Run. Then he's gone. The courtroom doors close behind him with a sound like a gunshot. Luca can't breathe. Can't move. Can't process what just happened. Adrian's hand lands on his shoulder, firm, grounding. We're leaving, he says. Now. But as they stand, as they gather their things, as they prepare to walk out into a city that suddenly feels far more dangerous than it did this morning, Luca sees it. Through the courtroom windows. A black car idling at the curb. Windows tinted. Engine running. Waiting. They don't go to Luca's apartment. Adrian doesn't ask. Doesn't discuss. He simply guides Luca through the courthouse's back exit, past confused security guards and startled clerks, and into a waiting car that Luca has never seen before. Black sedan. Tinted windows. Driver who doesn't introduce himself. The kind of car that says, we expected trouble. They drive in silence. Luca watches the city slide past. Familiar streets suddenly foreign, ordinary buildings suddenly suspicious. Every parked car could be Damien's. Every pedestrian could be watching. His hand rests against his chest. His heart won't slow down. Adrian sits beside him, perfectly still, perfectly calm. Like they're driving to dinner instead of fleeing a threat that just promised violence in a courtroom full of witnesses. Where are we going? Luca asks finally. His voice sounds small, fragile. Somewhere safe, Adrian says. That's all. No details. No explanations. Somewhere safe. As if such a place exists when you've just humiliated a Mafia heir in front of his entire organization. They pull up to a building Luca doesn't recognize. Modern. Glass and steel. The kind of place that costs more per month than Luca used to make in a year. Adrian leads him inside. Past security that nods without asking questions. Into an elevator that requires a keycard. Up to a floor that doesn't have a number. The apartment, if you can call it that, is massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Furniture that looks like it belongs in a museum. Everything white and chrome and angular. Cold. Beautiful. Empty. This is yours, Luca asks. One of them, Adrian says. He moves to the windows. Looks out at the city spread below like a map. Like something he can control from up here. Luca stands in the entryway. His borrowed suit suddenly feels even more ill-fitting. His presence in this space feels wrong. Like a stain on something pristine. Why did you come? The words spill out before he can stop them. Adrian doesn't turn around. "You called," he says simply. "I didn't think you'd answer." "I almost didn't." The honesty is brutal. Luca's throat tightens. "Then why?" "Because you're my son." Adrian's voice is quiet, flat. "And regardless of what happened between us, that doesn't change." He turns finally, looks at Luca properly for the first time since they left the courthouse. His expression is still unreadable, still controlled. But there's something in his eyes, something that might be regret or might just be exhaustion. "I was wrong," Adrian says. 5 years ago, I was wrong to give you an ultimatum. Wrong to cut you off when you didn't choose what I wanted. Wrong to..." He stops, breathes. "I was wrong about a lot of things." Luca's vision blurs. "You told me I was making a mistake," he whispers. "You said Damien was dangerous. You said..." "I know what I said. You were right." Adrian's jaw tightens. "I didn't want to be." Silence falls between them. Not comfortable, not warm, but honest. Luca moves to the couch, sits down carefully. His body feels heavy, exhausted from the adrenaline, from the fear, from carrying the weight of another life inside him while fighting for both their futures. Adrian stays by the windows, always maintaining distance, always careful not to presume closeness that hasn't been rebuilt. "He meant it," Luca says finally. "What he said. About it not being over. I know. He's going to." "I know," Adrian repeats. His voice is harder now. "Which is why you're not leaving this building until I've made certain arrangements." Luca looks up. "What kind of arrangements?" Adrian's expression darkens. "The kind that ensure Damien understands exactly what happens if he touches you." There's something in his tone that makes Luca's stomach twist. Something that reminds him why Adrian Vale is called the Phantom Council. Not because he's invisible, because by the time you realize he's there, it's already too late. "I don't want you to..." Luca stops, swallows. "I don't want you to do anything illegal." Adrian almost smiles. "Almost. Everything I do is legal," he says. "That's what makes it effective." He moves away from the windows, sits in the chair across from Luca, still maintaining distance but closer now, present. "You need to understand something," Adrian says. "Damien isn't just angry, he's threatened. His organization is built on perception, on the belief that he's untouchable. What happened today in that courtroom undermined that perception. His people saw him lose control, saw him exposed, saw him weak." Luca's hands tighten in his lap. "So he has to retaliate." "Yes." The word hangs heavy. "But not in court," Adrian continues. "He'll come at you sideways, through channels where the law can't reach. He'll hurt the baby." Adrian's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes. "He'll try," Adrian says quietly, "which is why we're not going to give him the opportunity." Luca's hand moves to his stomach, just for a moment. The first time he's allowed himself to do it openly in hours. The small swell is barely visible beneath his shirt, but it's there, real, alive, depending on him to make the right choices. "I'm scared," Luca whispers. "Good," Adrian says. "Fear keeps you careful. Just don't let it paralyze you." He stands, moves to a desk in the corner, returns with a phone, sleek, black, clearly new. "This is yours," he says. "Untraceable number. Only 3 contacts. Me, my assistant, and a security team that's now assigned to you full-time." Luca takes the phone. His hands are trembling slightly. "Full-time? You don't go anywhere without them," Adrian says. "You don't open the door for anyone. You don't trust anyone who claims to be from my office without calling me first to verify." The weight of it settles over Luca like a blanket made of stone. This is his life now. Not freedom, not safety, just survival. "How long?" Luca asks. Adrian's expression softens, just barely. "Until Damien isn't a threat anymore." "And when will that be?" Adrian doesn't answer, because they both know the truth. Men like Damien Moretti don't stop being threats. They just become different kinds of dangerous. Adrian's phone buzzes. He glances at it. His expression darkens. What? Luca asks. Adrian looks up. Damien just made bail, he says quietly. Luca's heart stops. Already. He has resources. Adrian's voice is grim. And clearly, he's not wasting time. He moves to the windows again. Looks down at the city. At the streets below where somewhere, right now, Damien Moretti is walking free. Stay away from the windows, Adrian says softly. And for the first time since he walked into that courtroom, his voice carries something other than control. Fear. Morning comes too bright. Luca wakes on the couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes, neck stiff from the angle, body heavy with exhaustion that sleep didn't touch. For a moment, he forgets where he is, forgets the trial, forgets everything. Then he sees the floor-to-ceiling windows, the unfamiliar apartment, Adrian standing in the kitchen, already dressed, phone pressed to his ear. Everything comes rushing back. Luca sits up slowly. His hand moves instinctively to his stomach, checking, confirming. Still there. Still safe. For now. Adrian ends his call. Turns toward Luca. Coffee? He asks. The mundane question feels surreal. As if they're father and son having breakfast instead of two people trapped in a gilded cage while a dangerous man plots revenge. I shouldn't, Luca says. Caffeine. Adrian nods. Pours himself a cup. Black. No sugar. Of course. The hearing resumes in 3 days, Adrian says. The paternity test is scheduled for this afternoon. Results will take 48 hours. Luca's stomach twists. And if, when it proves the baby is his, then he has legal obligations, Adrian says. Financial support. Shared custody considerations. But he pauses. He also has legal rights. The words land like stones. Rights. Damien would have rights to Luca's child. To their child. I can't let him, Luca's voice breaks. I can't let him near. You won't have to, Adrian interrupts. His tone is firm. Final. Not alone. Whatever access the court grants, will ensure it's supervised. Documented. Controlled. Controlled. As if anything about Damien Moretti can be controlled. Adrian's phone buzzes again. He glances at it. His expression shifts. Something dark flickering behind his eyes. What is it? Luca asks. Adrian hesitates, then turns the phone so Luca can see. It's a news article. Posted 20 minutes ago. Moretti Air claims fraud in courtroom ambush Omega. Accuser allegedly orchestrated elaborate scheme with estranged father. Luca's breath catches. He scrolls down. Sees his own face, a photo from years ago pulled from somewhere. Sees Damien looking composed, professional. Sees quotes describing Luca as opportunistic and manipulative and mentally unstable. The words blur. He's doing damage control, Adrian says quietly, changing the narrative. Making you the villain before the truth can spread. Luca's hands shake. But the evidence, the accounts, don't matter if public opinion turns first, Adrian says. Damien understands that. He spent the last 12 hours making calls, calling in favors, planting stories. He takes the phone back. By tomorrow, half the city will think you're a gold digger who weaponized a pregnancy to trap a powerful alpha. Luca feels sick. Can we? Is there anything? Yes, Adrian says. We fight back. On our terms. He moves to the desk, opens his laptop, starts typing with the kind of speed and precision that suggests he's done this before. I have contacts, he says. Journalists who owe me. Publications that won't be swayed by Moretti money. Will release a statement. Include the bank records. Frame it correctly. He pauses. Looks at Luca. But it's going to get worse before it gets better. You need to be prepared for that. Luca nods. What choice does he have? Afternoon. The paternity test is clinical. Sterile. A technician who doesn't make eye contact. A needle. A vial of blood. Paperwork signed in triplicate. Damien isn't there. He sent a representative, a lawyer who watches Luca like he's evidence instead of a person, who takes notes, who makes Luca feel like every breath is being cataloged for future use against him. Adrian stands in the corner, silent, watchful. When it's done, when the blood is drawn and labeled and sent to whatever lab will determine the future of Luca's life, Adrian places a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," he says, as if there was a way to do it poorly. They return to the apartment, to the gilded cage, to the waiting evening. Luca's new phone rings. A known number. He stares at it. Adrian looks up from his laptop. "Don't answer," Adrian says, but Luca's finger is already moving toward the screen. Something compels him. Curiosity, desperation, the need to know. He answers. Silence. Then breathing. Slow. Deliberate. "Luca." Damien's voice. Soft. Almost gentle. Luca's blood turns to ice. "How did you?" "I always know where you are," Damien says. "I always will." Adrian moves toward him. Luca holds up a hand. "Stop. Let me hear this." "What do you want?" Luca asks. "To talk," Damien says. "That's all. Just talk." "The restraining order is just a piece of paper," Damien interrupts. "You know that. You've always known that." Luca's hand tightens around the phone. "You threatened me. In court. In front of." "I was angry," Damien says. His tone shifts softer now. Almost apologetic. "You humiliated me, Luca. You brought that man into our business. You made me look like what you are?" Luca's voice hardens. "A liar? A fraud?" Silence. Then Damien laughs. Low, bitter. "You still don't understand," he says. "I'm trying to protect you. By threatening my baby?" "Our baby," Damien corrects. "If the test proves it. And when it does. When everyone knows that child is mine. Do you really think your father can keep you safe?" Luca's stomach twists. "He's good," Damien continues. "I'll give him that. Better than I expected. But he's one man, Luca. I have an entire organization. People who are loyal to me. Who would do anything I ask." Adrian is beside Luca now, mouthing "hang up," but Luca can't. He needs to hear this. Needs to understand what's coming. "I don't want to hurt you," Damien says. His voice drops, intimate, almost tender. "I never did. But you're backing me into a corner. And when alphas are cornered, we don't surrender." "What do you want?" Luca asks again. "Drop the case," Damien says simply. "Walk away. Let me give you a settlement, generous, more than fair, and disappear. Raise the pup somewhere safe. Somewhere I'll never find you. And if I don't?" Silence. Long. Heavy. "Then we'll see how brave your father really is," Damien says. The line goes dead. Luca's hands are shaking so badly he nearly drops the phone. Adrian takes it gently, looks at the number. His expression darkens. "He used a burner," Adrian says. "Untraceable." He moves to his laptop, starts typing. "He's escalating," Adrian says. "Faster than I expected. What do we do?" Luca's voice is barely a whisper. Adrian doesn't answer immediately. When he does, his voice is cold, precise. "We make sure he understands that threats have consequences." Adrian makes 3 phone calls. Luca can't hear what he's saying, but he watches his father's expression shift, watches something dark and calculated settle over him like armor. When Adrian hangs up, he looks at Luca. "Pack a bag," he says. "We're leaving." "Where?" "Somewhere Damien won't think to look." Luca stands, moves toward the bedroom. Behind him, Adrian returns to the window, looks down at the city. At the streets where somewhere, right now, Damien Moretti is planning his next move. And far below, barely visible in the evening traffic, a black car, windows tinted, engine idling, waiting. They leave through the service entrance. 2 in the morning, building mostly asleep. Only the security guard nodding at them, clearly briefed, clearly paid to forget. A different car waits. Not the black sedan from before. Something older, less conspicuous. Driver Luca doesn't recognize. Adrian carries Luca's small bag. Luca carries nothing but his phone and the weight of everything that's happened in the last 48 hours. The city at night looks different. Quieter. More dangerous. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every parked car could be surveillance. The fear sits heavy in Luca's chest. Not just for himself, but for the life inside him that didn't ask to be part of this war. They drive for 20 minutes before Luca realizes they're heading toward the water. "Where are we going?" he asks. "Somewhere secure," Adrian says. "A property I own under a different name. Damien won't find it. Not quickly, anyway. Not quickly. But eventually. Everything is just buying time now. Delaying the inevitable." "The test results come back tomorrow," Luca says quietly. Adrian nods. "I know. What if," Luca stops. Swallows. "What if they prove it's his? Then we adjust our strategy," Adrian says. His voice is calm. Clinical. The voice of someone who's planned for every contingency. Custody battles can take years. Supervised visitation. Evaluations. "We'll make sure. He'll kill me before it gets that far." The words hang in the air between them. Honest. Brutal. Adrian doesn't deny it. "He'll try," Adrian says finally. "But I won't let him succeed." Luca wants to believe him. Wants to trust that his father, this man he hasn't spoken to in 5 years, this man who built a career on precision and control, can protect him from someone like Damien Moretti. But trust is fragile. And Luca's has been shattered too many times. They arrive at a house Luca has never seen. Small. Isolated. Sitting on a cliff overlooking dark water. No neighbors. No streetlights. The kind of place where you could scream and no one would hear. Or the kind of place where no one could reach you. Luca isn't sure which thought is more comforting. Inside, the house is simple. Functional. Nothing like Adrian's sterile apartment. This feels lived in. Real. "This was your mother's," Adrian says quietly. Luca freezes. His mother died when he was 12. Cancer. Quick and brutal. He hasn't heard Adrian mention her in. "She bought it before you were born," Adrian continues. "Wanted a place away from the city. Somewhere quiet." He pauses. "I kept it. Never could bring myself to sell." The grief in his voice is subtle. Almost hidden. But there. Luca's throat tightens. "I didn't know. I didn't tell you."